3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
It's Monday. It's Monday. It really is. 7 o'clock. And that can mean only one thing. It's time for Reading the Signs, where me, Comedy John Ryan, and my comedian pals from all over the world are going to be talking about comedy, well-being, why we do it, how we cope. And that's where we need your help. We need you to send us your top tips for well-being. Be part of the show. Drop a comment in the box on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, on the mensradiostation.com website. It's going to be a great show, much better than last week. What we're trying to do is think exceptional, which, funnily enough, is the motto of WJ, our show sponsors. WJ are the UK's leading road marking and highway maintenance company. They're working with us, we're working with you. Let's get to it. Well, good evening once again. It's 7 o'clock. It's time for another episode of Reading the Signs with me, John Ryan. How's your day been? Do let me know that you're there. Drop a comment in the comments box, or write it on a wall somewhere. I might be driving past your road. I might see it and go, oh, that's me they're talking about. We want to know what you think. Obviously, it's your show as well. So let us know what you've been up to today, what you've been doing. Are you happy? Are you sad? You having a good day, a bad day? I don't know. I've had a great day today. I'm not going to lie. Because it's been raining, and everyone who listens regularly will know that I love the rain. And let's get straight to it. The weather is just like your mental health. We're all experiencing the same thing, but some of us having better or worse experiences of it. So I like the rain, so today was a good day. The missus hates the rain, so for her today was a bad day. But we've had the same day. It's just how we've interpreted it. It's been a funny old few days, what with Easter and that. What do we all think of Easter? Let me know. I've always hated it. As a kid, it was the worst time of year for me. When you're brought up in a very devout Catholic household, Easter was bigger than Christmas in my house growing up. So my mum was just like in a whole religious frenzy for it was just like church for days on end. It was just, and there's nothing on the television apart from Jason and the Argonauts or The Sound of Music on Easter Sunday. So I'm glad to say that things have moved on somewhat from those days. But how's yours? Do let me know how it's all going. Quick shout out, Dave Sleet. Thanks, mate. You're always really supportive, always coming along. Dave Sleet from APA, who is kind of like one of our resident experts. So as I always like to point out, I'm not a clinician. I've got no lived experience, and most of my guests don't either. We're just people who are surviving, and sometimes what works for us may well work for other people or not. Anyway, what can I tell you about tonight's guest? Well, I've known this guy probably for about 15 years. Bumped into him fairly infrequently on the circuit. But I've always been impressed by a couple of things. He's very polite and well-mannered, which I like. And he's very quick-witted, very, very quick-witted. But the thing that strikes you most of all when you meet him is that you become very aware pretty quickly into your conversation that he's a very proud dad. And for me, a measure of a man is if he's willing to be open and honest about being proud to be a dad. Because let's be honest, it's not the easiest job in the world, is it? What do we get? We get the leg of the turkey at Christmas and some white socks. Thanks to Dave Green as well for coming along. Dave, let us know if you've got any questions or comments as we go through the next hour. Tony's very, very interesting. One of the best gag writers in the country. I think he's up there with Gary Delaney and Jimmy Carr. But also just a nice bloke. So do let us know. Oh, yeah, and he's a history buff. So I dare say we'll be talking about the war at some stage. So I think that's enough of me. Let's get this guy in on the show. Can we just have a quick welcome to Mr. Tony Cowards? How you doing, mate?
Hello, John. I'm all right, thanks.
Are you celebrating? You've got like Christmas lights up, or are they Easter lights in the background?
I think they're probably Christmas lights we forgot to take down. But yeah, I'd forgotten about those.
I last week burned my Christmas tree in the garden. I put it out there like in end of January, and it's just been out there.
Yeah.
And because she doesn't go to that part of the garden, she never knew. Hey ho! So
just quite ceremonial, did it?
It was symbolic, burning the Christmas tree at Easter. Just want to say a quick hello to Steph. Steph loves the rain. It stops her neighbours having noisy wild parties. Are you a big fan of the rain, Tone? Does it work for you? rain or sunshine? What was
I don't mind a bit of rain. I don't like it when it's like absolutely torrential, especially if you're stuck out in it. Because I've got a dog, so it's not good for dog walking. My dog absolutely hates the rain. He's a bit of a wuss.
You know what? You've got a 21st century dog there, mate.
Yeah,
I'm from the 80s. Dogs used to take themselves for a walk, and none of this picking up their poo and having like doggy dates. My son's dog has got dog sitters.
Really?
Ridiculous.
Yeah, no, our dog's quite sensitive. Yeah, he doesn't like water or the rain.
Oh, mate. Anyway, look, Mark Harrison Price, thanks for coming along, mate. Still in isolation. He's got COVID, so he's feeling good after a few good nights' sleep and some sunny Lanzarote. Top guy, Mark. Thanks.
Good.
Thanks for your positive comments the other day as well, mate. Much appreciated. So, tell me what you like as a kid. You got brothers and sisters?
No, I'm an only child, mate. Only child.
Oh. Did you always feel like you was one of the adults though?
I don't know if I felt like one of the adults, but I was. My parents treated me quite adult, really, and I had two uncles that are twins who were actually only 9 years older than me. So I kind of used to hang around with them quite a bit. So I guess I was always kind of hanging around with people who were a bit older than I was.
Does that make you seem more sensible than you? Because sometimes people can come across as mature, can't they? And when actually they're just quiet.
Yeah, I think I was always relatively quiet. I don't know if I was very mature. I'm not sure, but yeah, I suppose I was always used to hanging around with kids who were a bit older than me, I guess.
Just want to say a quick hello to my mate Beck, who comes along and listens all the time as well. Who knows where they are? Where are you at the moment, Beck? They're either on a ship around Europe, in a bar in mainland Spain, or in Nottingham, looking at the weather. Wherever they are, they're very welcome.
I'd rather be in Spain, I think, than Nottingham. Yeah.
What was school like, mate? Did you enjoy school? Were you academic? Were you?
School was interesting because, like, I grew up in Suffolk until I was about 11. Then my mum and dad got divorced. My mum and dad are both originally from the East End of London, both proper Cockneys. My dad was like literally born within the sound of Bow Bells.
Okay.
So I went to a couple of schools in Suffolk. One which was just a ridiculously rural little village school where I think there was only 30 pupils. So there was like you weren't separated into classes by your age, because otherwise you'd have been in a class of like 3 people. So we were all sort of in together. And then when I moved to London, I went to a Catholic primary school, despite only very notionally being Catholic.
Do you share my fear of Easter?
I don't know. I just associate Easter with eggs, so chocolate eggs.
Okay.
So no, it wasn't. It was never too bad. My family were never particularly. I think we're all notionally Catholic, but like no one was ever really. My nan probably was the most sort of religious of us all. But
yeah, I think Catholicism is the best religion, right? And I'll tell you why. Because you can do what you want, do anything you want. Then just before you die, you ask for forgiveness, you get forgiveness.
Yeah, you just get forgiveness. You have to carry around the burden of the sin, though, don't you? Quite a bit.
Mate. It's like I'd struggle with Islam and have all them rules that you got. And Judaism, we've got to do things proper and be a good person. Oh, no, that don't work for me. But being a Catholic is, best football teams. I would argue Italy.
It's kind of
France,
a bit of a
Spain,
hipster religion, don't you think? It's a bit of a.
I think so. I think it's underrated.
Yeah,
very underrated. Snazzy little cross, little crucifix, very snazzy, very sexy. Can't get stabbed with a pointy bit. Anyway, don't start me on that. I'll get distracted. How was school though? Were you academic? Were you the brightest kid in the class of 3?
I was quite academic until I got a bit older. I passed my 11 plus, and I went to grammar school, secondary school. So yeah, in Ilford where I lived. But then the thing was, I was a big fish in a small pond. But as soon as I went to a big pond, I wasn't in the top stream anymore. I was kind of more, if I was lucky, I was in the middle. So yeah, I did all right at school, but like going to a grammar school meant I was no longer the brainy kid anymore.
Were you shy? Were you quiet? Were you noisy, gobby?
I've always been pretty shy and quiet, and a lot of people who've known me for a long time find it very weird that I do comedy, because they thought that'd be the last thing I would do, because I was very shy and quiet, reserved. Oh yeah, someone's saying about the cane. I was in the 80s, so we just missed out on the cane. But I
missed out on little bottles of milk.
Oh, I had little bottles of milk, and Maggie Thatcher milk snatcher.
Do you know what? I loved
Yeah.
her for that. I thought this woman's going to be the greatest human being in my life because I can't drink milk. I can't process milk.
Are you lactose
So,
intolerant, though?
I don't know what it is. If I drink milk, I'll just chuck it up. So, and I'll
Fair
literally
enough.
chuck it up in seconds. I have to have a little bit in tea and coffee just to get a little bit of like calcium and that. But if I drink milk, it's just I watch people downing a cold pint of milk, and I'm like, yeah, that looks so cool. If I did it, it would be back up in seconds, right? So at school, the teacher go, right, drink your milk. I'm like, but miss, I'm going to vomit if I drink it. And I drink it, and I just shoot it straight out projectile. And
Nice.
I got a slipper for that. I got it with a slipper. And the head teacher said, "You keep it down." I went, "Right then." Then he came in to make sure I kept it down. I vomited it all over him as well. And then after that, I was allowed orange.
It's a bit harsh punishing you for like a
No.
reaction that you can't control, isn't it?
So this is my life, mate. I've always been
Reflex.
punished for things I'm not doing
reflex
deliberately.
action.
I'm just that kid who looked like the kid that threw the stone at you. I was explaining to this was only about 5 years ago, right? I'm on a tube train with two mates, saying to them about how I can get into an argument or a fight without even opening my mouth. And honestly, the next stop, these two Scottish blokes got on. One of them literally stepped on, looked at me, and went, "What are you looking at?" And I just said to my mate, "Look, see, this is my life." He goes, "I'm talking to you. What are you looking at?" So, sorry, mate, I'll be right with you. See, this is what happens to me all the time. I'm minding my own business. Now he probably wants to fight me. Oh, so I'll fight you. Yeah, there you go. He's going to want to fight me now. It was hilarious. All the other passengers getting really uncomfortable. That's my life, mate. But anyway, enough about me. So did you finish?
You don't look like that sort of person, though.
I know, because you know me as cuddly,
You're a very
friendly.
friendly, nice guy.
There
It's
you
very
go.
odd.
I know. Did you leave school with a lot of qualifications? What was
I did all right in my GCSEs. I did really well in GCSEs, but then A levels, I struggled with A levels, so I didn't do particularly well in my A levels.
a step up, wasn't it, mate?
Yeah, I think the trouble is because I was quite good academically at a young age. I then coasted through the rest of my school. I kind of took it too easy, and GCSEs were about my level. I could kind of coast through them. I didn't have to do too much revision or work. But then A levels,
Right.
you needed to actually put in some hard work, and I didn't.
I just want to just give a quick mention to one of our regulars, because if I don't mention her, she won't let me forget it. But listening in Dallas, Texas, a big hello to Dawn.
Wow.
Mate, we got followers, mate. We got people.
I didn't realise this was going to be so international.
Mate, would you have put the Christmas lights on behind you? Actually,
I would.
They may be.
I'm trying to work
crown
out
of
where
thorns in the
they're
making.
I might, if you're lucky, I might be able to work out and turn them on for you. Add a little bit of glamour.
We'll just. I just want to give a quick mention to Andy Heather, who is recovering from heart surgery. Get this, he's only recently found out he's got like a 7 mil hole in his heart.
Blimey.
But yeah, you just go. It's just like so matter of fact about it. I've got a hole in my heart. Oh, all right, nothing. Wishing you well there, big man. Hope you get better. What did you want to be when you was a kid, Tone? What was your dream?
Oh, I wanted to be a footballer.
There you go.
Love football.
Steph straight on that question. Actually, that was a question. You wanted to put what for Ipswich?
Yeah, Ipswich was my team. That's where I was born and grew up.
Because you are the other supporter, aren't you? You and Ed Sheeran and Mike McLean's son.
Yeah. Me and Ed. We're like that, me and Ed. Yeah.
You want to be a footballer? Were you any good?
I was all right. I was left-footed, which I always think is a bit of a bonus, isn't it? Because there's not many left-footers, so you always get put on the team just purely because you can use your left foot. So yeah, I was very small though. I mean, I'm not that tall now, but I was very short as a kid. So I was always like the little scrawny little winger, left winger.
Who was the little Brazilian bloke played for Middlesbrough at size 4 feet?
Was that oh no, what was his name? Mirandini.
No, he was Newcastle. He was. If anyone knows the answer,
Middlesbrough, you said. Oh, Jorginho.
Yeah, terrific.
No, oh, bloody hell. The name's on the tip.
It had an Enio at the end of it, didn't it?
Yeah, it was Juninho. Yeah, that's right, isn't it? Something like that.
So football.
Yeah, size 4 feet. Well, yeah, I was a bit like that. I was a bit little. I wasn't as good as him though. But I used to do all right. I used to play on the wing mostly, but I used to score quite a lot of goals for the school team and stuff.
What was your first job when you left school?
First job when I left school. Well, I used to work I worked in a couple of shops while I was still at school. A teenager. I did paper round and all that sort of stuff as well. But I used to work in a shop up in Covent Garden, doing a Saturday job, which was quite cool. I was working at. It was a place that supplied like bits and pieces to the theatres. Very technical little bits, coloured filters for the lights and that sort of thing for the West End theatres. So that was quite a cool job. I used to do that Saturday mornings. And then all the money I earned, I used to then go and spend at a couple of shops around in Covent Garden. One was Forbidden Planet, because I'm a bit of a geek.
Right, yeah.
I used to spend it all on comics and stuff. And another one was a little place called Orc's Nest, which is all Dungeons and Dragons stuff and all that sort of bits and pieces.
So is that you into all that kind of? I'm not going to lie to you, mate. I always thought that was a bit weird.
I was well into that. I was well into that as a kid, as a teenager, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
My mate Alan,
I loved Star Wars, and got into all those, and then got into, read Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and
it became a bit. Let's go back to this Dungeons and Dragons first. My mate Alan, he was a West Ham supporter, a bit of a football hooligan, and then he got a job in Marks and Spencer's, but in the warehouse, which was slightly different to working in the shop, because he was with all kind of men, just all men. They used to
very mainly men.
Lorries, proper geezers. And then one Saturday, we were like, "What are we doing Saturday? We're going to go for a beer." And he was like, "No, I'm going to Dave's house." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then during the week, he said, we were like, "How did you get on?" He goes, "Oh, we played this really good game." And we're like, "Oh yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, if you want, I'll show you it." Okay. And he set it up in the pub, and we all just stared at him in disbelief. And right, 7 moves now. You're right. You've come across a mizzet with a stick. We're like, "Well, we're just chilling." And he's like, "No, you can't do that. Your character wouldn't do that." Yeah, no, he would. So yeah, just fascinating. So you got this kind of arty kind of thing going on, then, didn't you? Really, you got this.
Yeah, I was a bit of like a contradiction, I suppose, because you tend to think you're either as Americans would call it, a jock, wouldn't they? Jock and a geek or whatever, or nerd. But I was like a combination of the two. I love football. I love sport. But I was also into The Hobbit and science fiction.
Lord of the Rings, all that stuff.
Yeah, I was well into. I love The Hobbit. To be honest, as a kid, I tried to read Lord of the Rings, but I only got about halfway through. It was I had it all collected. It was 3 books, wasn't it? But I had them all collected into one book that was like so thick.
Little hairy things. I stopped at the Wombles.
Little hairy hobbits.
I'm like Michael Bentine had this program called Potty Time. These little hairy.
Oh, Potty Time, yeah.
It freaked me out. So The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, it's not.
It
don't do it for me, mate. I can't cope with it. And like all that fighting.
But it was a very Dungeons and Dragons, and that was all, and all those sort of things were a bit of a guilty secret back then. I find it quite interesting now that being a nerd is quite cool now, isn't it? Like your Marvel films are mainstream.
Money out of it, didn't they? All these role
players. Hobbit and everything is massive, isn't it? And Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones.
Do you do the computer games? Do you do all that world of?
Not anymore, but I used to as a kid. I had this is how old I am. I had a Spectrum. I had a proper rubber keyboard Spectrum when I was a kid. I used to play all those games.
Okay.
But yeah, I've never really done sort of console sort of stuff nowadays. I'm too worried that if I did, I'd get into it so far that it'd just suck up all my time. Yeah.
Did you ever watch Red Dwarf?
Red Dwarf, yeah.
So there was a game on there called Better Than Life, if you remember it.
Yeah.
And it's just all these people who become addicted to their games consoles, and
it was like a virtual reality thing, wasn't it?
Virtual reality, yeah. And I know so many people who just spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and they can't communicate in the real world, but online they're like Xena, warrior princess.
Yeah.
But in the real world, they're Dave, who works at the co-op.
Yeah. Well, that's like Dungeons and Dragons was a bit like that, because you and role playing games in general, because you played a different character. I could be this meek, mild little lad, but in the game I was a hulking great barbarian that could, save the princess and do all the things I couldn't do in real life.
Well, you could give it a go, mate. You could. I reckon you could take Prince Harry. Get over there.
Prince Harry. He's an army-trained killer, isn't he? Like, he'd snap me in two.
Mate. Dave Green, I'm with you, mate. Ewoks were scary. Scary little things. Chewbacca, he's all right. He's 7 foot tall, but Ewoks, if they're little and hairy, I've got a thing about little and hairy.
Little and hairy. Do you not like little and hairy? Fair enough.
No, I get very distressed. Who was that? Was it Gimli in Lord of the Rings with the
Oh yeah, he was
beard?
one of the dwarfs. Yeah.
Oh, I don't think you can say dwarf. If you've noticed, I very skillfully avoided it by saying.
I think you
little
can in
people.
Lord of the Rings. They were literally called dwarfs.
But can you still call them that, or they'll get cancelled now? That's a
I don't know.
question.
You
That's got
can't
the
cancel
answer to that.
Tolkien, can you?
And I'm not having a go at anyone who's from the little community. I'm not mocking people or making, God, mate.
Only if
But
they're hairy as well.
if they're hairy, yes, I'll push them over. I can't cope with them. I want to
What
stop.
about Captain? What about Captain Caveman? Because he was little and hairy. Wasn't
Didn't like him. No,
he?
didn't like him. No.
He always reminded me of
Do
Bill
you know
Oddie.
what? I even struggled for years with ELO. Because like you got a beard, that's well manicured, you got short hair. But if they got the long hair and the beards, no, mate. ELO, I used to just listen to music and not.
I've heard
This is
people have a
good.
lot of reasons for not liking ELO, but I've never heard because they were too hairy before.
I used to have a radio show where I played music and I'd play a hairy back to back, and we'd play 3 back to back songs by hairy recording artists. Then we got a new station manager who says you can't do that. Well, why not? No,
Who was the best? Who was the best hairy band then, or hairy singer?
I'm
Kenny Rogers is pretty hairy, isn't he? He was pretty
mate
good.
Kenny, my mate Kenny. Yeah, he's not really a band; he's more of a god. But ELO were right out there on the hairy scale. Foo Fighters when they were hairy.
Well, what's the band that's got they're all bearded? Oh, the ZZ Top, isn't it? Except
ZZ, no, ZZ Top. I refuse to
ZZ
use
Top.
American. I refuse to use American expressions. Dawn and Dallas may disagree.
Isn't the only guy that it's in ZZ Top that doesn't have a beard? Isn't his name Beard? Isn't his name?
Oh, mate, you've lost me there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the only guy that doesn't have a beard in the band, his actual name is Beard.
Well, I guess
I might have got that wrong. That might be absolute cobblers. I might make that up.
ABBA were pretty. They were 50% hairy, weren't they?
Yeah.
They sleep freaked out by the epochs on Prozac, the Care Bears. Brilliant. Now we're
I didn't like Care Bears.
Mate,
I wasn't a fan of Care Bears.
Well, do you know what it is? I think if your nickname, you're trying to use your nickname to portray an image, like, so if you're called like Mad Dave, I'm like, come on, Dave, really? Hard as anything, Harry. Really, Harry? You're just Harry, aren't you? No one's going to call you that. Care Bears, same. Just trying too hard. A child catcher in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Dawn didn't. Yeah, I don't think anyone liked.
Yeah, no, he was, but he wasn't hairy though, was he? Particularly, he was
right. No,
like
but he had
a weird willowy.
Dave Sleet is making notes about me now. I can sense it, Dave. Beard, hats. I always had a fear of hats. Well, how have I ended up on the couch here? What have you done? You're very skillful.
We've turned this round, mate. beards and hats. Oh, Dave says it's true about ZZ Top.
ZZ Top. There you go. So, what happened with comedy? I'm getting prompted now by one of the listeners.
Have we gone up on a bit of a tangent?
Focus, mate. It's a story of my life going off on a bit of a tangent. But anyway, Steph, we'll let Steph have this one. How did you get into comedy?
Oh, that's good. That's a good question. I was living in London at the time, sort of in my late 20s, I guess, and this was the late 90s when like comedy was going through its big kind of the new rock and roll kind of phase. Like it was just after the Newman and Baddiel had done Wembley Arena and all that sort of stuff, and Cruella de Vil. That is,
Steph's scared of Cruella de Vil. Anyway, look, come on.
I think you're supposed to be, aren't you? But
I think you're meant to be.
Anyway, so it was the late 90s, big comedy boom. So I was going to a lot of comedy clubs and watching a lot of comedy. Got really into it, and then a friend of mine, a guy that I used to work with, started running a comedy night in North London. A comedy night called the Comedian's Graveyard. It ran for a few years.
Mate, I remember that.
Really,
Jim.
Yeah, Jim and Dave used to run it. Yeah, and it used to be fantastic because they didn't really know what they were doing, so they put on a whole show. They thought that every show had to be like completely different, so they wrote material for every month and songs and games and all sorts.
No, it's great. It was a great gig, wasn't it? After Wonder Woman.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I saw amazing people there. I saw like I think Jimmy Carr probably did it, and Tim Vine and he did it, and all sorts of people. But I used to go along and just help them out because they needed someone to help, like on the door and do the sound and, you know, basically help them set up bits and pieces. But because it wasn't like a regular comedy show, they didn't just have a compare and an act and then a compare act, that sort of stuff. They did like little skits and little
Yeah, little
songs
skit.
and sketches
Yeah.
and they had games that they played. They got audience members up to play like little games and stuff. So so they always needed like help doing some of those things. And then
Yeah,
eventually
yeah.
I got dragged on stage one time to they did a thing. It sounds a bit mean now, actually, when I think about it. But what they had their little open mic section, you know, where you'd have newer acts doing like
Yeah.
5 minutes, and we used to do a thing called the comedy forensic squad. And what happened was, if one of the acts had really died badly, we used to like play a siren, and like there'd be an announcement there'd been a crime against comedy committed, and then we used to run on and dust
Brilliant.
down the stage for prints and stuff.
Brilliant. Brilliant. See,
All
that
dressed
kind
in
of,
like,
that
dressed in
sort
those.
of, yeah, the
Yeah, you know
Undertaker's
those
outfit,
kind of
sorry.
forensic suits, the paper suits we used to run on, like.
But that kind of anarchic, off the wall comedy, it's gone now, isn't it? It's all very sanitized.
Yeah, there's
and
not a lot of it about, is there now?
No.
It's I don't know
No.
where you'd find that sort of thing. There's
You go.
isn't
I
there
tell you,
sort
you
of
go.
like isn't there
King's
some
Head,
clubs in London that kind of have it? The alternative comedy
the Poodle Club that
memorial.
Karen Novak runs down in Sydenham. That's pretty
Yeah,
good for that.
I'm sure you can find it, but I bet it's a lot harder to find nowadays. There's a lot.
Yeah, Comedy Cottage in Red Hill. They have
Right.
them, and a King's Head in Crouch End, of course, where
Yeah.
anything goes. It's just fantastic. That sort of, I love all that. I used to go to the Hackney Empire. There used to be this old lady who used to, there'd be music, and she would just do origami, just random, just
Yeah.
completely random. And Martin Sohn used to do really odd things as well with roller
Yeah,
skates.
yeah.
And, but yeah, so where was your actual first gig then? Was it at the Comedy Graveyard?
So no, not really, because I got involved with them. So I was watching a lot of comedy, and you know how people say like, "Oh, what inspired you to do the comedy? Who inspired you?" And like, there's loads of great acts. I saw loads of great acts, but the people that actually inspired me to do it were the people that probably weren't so good. You know, the slightly crazy people that you just think, "What? Why on earth are you on stage? You actually need help, not an audience." So they kind of more inspired me because I always thought like, "Oh, if I did it, at least I don't know if I'd be any good, but I certainly wouldn't be like amongst the worst." I felt I could probably be somewhere in the middle.
Oh, you've managed to keep going for 20 years, mate. So you've got to be halfway
Yeah,
decent.
about that, yeah.
And
So yeah,
and
no, that wasn't actually my first gig. My first actual gig was they did a world record attempt in Manchester. I forget
Okay.
what the name of the theatre was now. A dance house, maybe, or the Roundhouse. But
No,
anyway, it was the
cool.
Stand Up 150, where they tried to get 150 comedians to do a show because it was going to be the biggest bill for a comedy show ever. And you were supposed to have done at least a couple of gigs, but I hadn't actually done a gig. And I went and did that, and they were doing everyone, because there were so many acts on the bill. You were only doing like a couple of minutes. So that was my actual first gig.
What year was that?
2003 or 4, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, for a little while. I don't think it is now, but
Change
for
the
a little
Record,
while,
wasn't it?
I don't know.
It was called Change the Record. Des Sharples and Jason
Well, it might
Cook.
have been. Yeah, Des and Jason Cook were definitely involved organising it. Yeah.
Stand Up the Dance House Theatre. I've just found
Dance
it.
House, there we go. Yeah, and a load of comics from London all went up in a coach. It was great fun.
Wow.
I remember there
Brilliant.
was a coach of about 40 of us went up to do our 2 minutes, 2 minutes, all the way to Manchester.
Yeah,
To do 2
it's
minutes.
you know what? It's an adventure. Let me just stop you there for a moment, just to say hello to anyone who's listening. You're listening to me, John Ryan, on men's radio station or women's radio station. We're also on the Deluxe Radio Network and Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. You depots up and down the country. If you work for WJ, you might find us. And at this point, I will give a big shout out to WJ, the UK's leading road market and highway maintenance company, who have been so supportive of well-being in their teams and also in the broader community. So I'm joined tonight by Tony Coward, who is a great comic. If you haven't seen him, do go and see him. Was I being generous or harsh comparing you to Gary Delaney and Jimmy Carr?
Well, I don't know. That's lovely company to be in. Yeah, I really.
Is there room for you? Is there room for a third musketeer?
Third Musketeer. Well, you see, you've left out some of my favourites there, though. I mean, I think Gary and Jimmy are obviously brilliant, but I love Milton Jones and especially. I'm a big fan of Tim Vine, although, like, I wouldn't say his jokes are always necessarily the best, but I find them so funny. Like,
Yeah, but I think I put you in the company of Jimmy and Gary because I sort of my comedy. I've grown up in my comedy with you guys, whereas Milton and Tim were established when I started. So I've seen how the three of you, and I've tried to explain this to people. Funnily enough, back in the 90s, Barney the dinosaur, big purple dinosaur, Mr. Blobby, big purple kind of odd-looking creature, and then there was a French woman who came up with a purple kind of spotted dinosaur, who said the other two had ripped off her idea, but it wasn't. It just wasn't enough room for three purple dinosaurs. Is there enough room for three? Mate, come on. You know what I mean? I'm turning to Richard Madeley, am I? So, purple dinosaurs, Tony. How do you feel? Why don't you get
the viewers to vote in? Is there room for three purple dinosaurs?
Is there room for three purple dinosaurs? At which point, what a great moment to say hello to comedy royalty. With a blast from the past. Ooh, who's this then? So a little hello from the King of Spain. Do you remember the King of Spain?
Oh yeah, Griff
sat
Griff
there. Griff. I had him on
Griff.
as a guest.
I remember Griff was brilliant. I definitely saw Griff a good few times at the comedian's graveyard. He was superb. I hope you're all right, Griff. Yeah,
he's written a book and he's making a documentary and he's just he's just an interesting one.
He's fantastic. I used to love him.
So
he had some absolutely cracking gags as well. He was a great.
Again, he's another one, isn't he? Where you go, this guy could have been a massive act had he wanted to, but he's one of these people that he's a bit of a pain, Griff, because if he decides that he's going to be a swimmer, he's going to be an Olympic swimmer, or if he decides he's going to, you know what I mean, sell cakes, he's going to win Bake Off. He's just one of them people who just he does everything well, and you go,
all right.
Stephen Owen, hopefully
be more like me, Griff. Settle for mediocrity. Just think like there's a place in the middle.
Settle for Christmas lights. Stephen Owen, another one recovering. It's just like Lourdes tonight. We got Stephen Owen recovering from.
Oh yeah, shall I place my hand on the screen? Can I do something?
Mate, it's Easter. We could do anything here, couldn't we? We've got Andy Heather.
I keep looking around to see if I can switch the Christmas lights on. It might make the difference. I'm not sure where the plug is.
It could help. You never know. Griff saying that he has. Where was the place? Steph wants to know where was the place where you got to throw fruit at bad comedians. I think
that was the Middle Ages, wasn't it? I think that was
Steph's having flashbacks. I think
that was the 16th century or the 15th century.
Where are you? Steph? Have you seen this on the telly? Have you dreamt it, or have you?
Yeah, that was just something that used to be in the Beano, wasn't it, and stuff like that. I'm not sure that ever really happened, did it?
Got to point out, Steph is ex-military, so this could well have happened at like Akrotiri or somewhere like that.
Well, have you ever had anything thrown at you, John? I'm struggling to think if I've had anything.
Funnily enough, I had 2,500 fluorescent lights thrown at me in Afghanistan by a load of squaddies who decided to throw them all at the stage. And it was very entertaining because the show manager had a proper meltdown and said, "Right, get off the stage." I'm not getting off the stage and showing them. Weakness or whatever. So I started trying to catch some, head some, kick some. Yeah, it didn't go because he's obviously tour manager. It's his job to make sure that we all stay safe. And on that note, Dave Green says it must take amazing mental strength to do stand up. I'd rather get shot at. So do you think you have to be mentally tough to do stand up, Tone?
I guess you do, but I always find that weird. You must have had this because you do gigs. You said for squaddies, and I do a fair bit of military stuff, military gigs, and I always find it amazing that they always come up to you and say, "Oh, you're so brave doing comedy." And I think, God, you literally go places where there's bombs exploding and people trying to shoot you. Like, how am I brave getting up here when like what you do? But I suppose people think public speaking, don't they? What is it?
They fear it.
Death, isn't it, first, and then public speaking second, isn't it? I think. And
I did my men's health project. I did one of the venues early on was in Gartree Prison, which was for lifers, and they put it on in a chapel. Quite interesting. I've mentioned this before, but it was probably about the second time I've ever been behind the gate in a prison. I've been to visit, but I've never actually been
Right.
inside. You know, although I did previously. I'd done a writing workshop. Anyway, what was really odd was everyone looked like me, so I didn't look out of place. Nobody stared at me like, "What's he doing?" But we did.
Did you
When
start
we
any
did,
fights, mate? Did anyone
so,
want to fight you?
like, give me your apple.
What are you looking
Right,
at?
well, yeah. I just kept my eyes down and tried not to let anyone do any favours for me, because then you owe them on the outside when they get released. So, but what was funny was I went into the gig and nobody sat in the first 3 rows. And I said, "Is anyone going to come sit down the front?" And the bloke went, "No way, mate. You're going to take the mickey out of us." I'm like, "You're murderers." And,
Did you actually say that?
I stood around thinking, and it went quiet. One bloke went, "I'm a burglar." I went, "Oh, all right, mate." Well, he's a burglar. So yeah, that was all very interesting. How did you cope then with good gigs and bad gigs? Did you ever have like a real stinker where you thought, "I can't do this no more"?
Oh my God, yeah, I've had loads of those, mate. I don't really know, because I don't know. Like, I think my mental toughness is reasonable, but I wouldn't say I'm the sort of toughest mentally, if that makes
Yeah,
sense. If there's
yeah,
right
but
words.
as Dave's pointed out, it's considered a scary thing. People are very
Yeah,
impressed.
it's very weird. I look back on my first I reckon for about my first 50 to 100 gigs, I was absolutely terrified every time I went on stage. And I when I look back on it, I don't know why I kept doing it in some ways. I must have been getting something out of it. But like, I just remember being absolutely terrified every time before I went on stage. But I've done it enough now that I don't get I get the kind of, the slight butterflies. You always get, I don't know if you're the same, I always get a little bit of and I think it's not
A little bit of a
I
tummy
think it's not a
flutter.
bad thing. A little bit of nervous energy, which I think is actually a good thing, because
Yeah,
it kind of
got
keeps you on your
focus.
toes a bit.
Got focus.
Um,
Dave Green pointing out that he remembers Jim Davison walking off because Squaddies broke him in the 90s. I know that obviously Jim Davison doesn't always have the greatest reputation on a circuit, but the Squaddies love him. They just
yeah.
he paid for them all to have a beer or something on a flight back from Iraq. Every Squaddy that came back got beers from him. So, and he actually puts on a lot of gigs.
Oh, I
But
don't know
again,
if I was just trying to think. I was just trying to think whether I've ever been like literally broken at a squaddy gig or whatever, because I've done quite a few, and some of them have been absolute madness and riots breaking out and stuff. But they've always been great fun. I don't know that I've ever had a really terrible one.
I once
Like
did
for the military.
once in
Are you-
Cyprus, went on stage and they just stared at me. I thought, this is a bit odd.
right.
Hey, how you doing, guys? Let's make some noise. Nothing. Right. Okay. So who we got in tonight? Nothing. Okay. So at that stage, you realise they don't want to play. They just want to listen.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just roll out the gags. Nothing.
Yeah.
Here comes my big hitter there. Here it comes. Nothing. My brain went, I can't do this anymore. I've been found out. And
Right.
do another
Shit.
big hitter that always works. Nothing. I'm like, oh God, man, what can I do? If this doesn't work, I've got to get a job. What sort of job can I get? Then over the course of the 20 minutes, it was just silent. They just stared at me. And you have to do your time at these gigs. So at 17 minutes, I'm thinking, well, I could do a bit of carpentry, I could do a bit of plumbing. Actually, plumbers make good money. Then I've got a joke specific to this regiment, which is they're Royal Engineers, so it's a really great gig. Nothing. And then I'm thinking, right, what I'll do is I will go and get a Prince of Wales grant for a van, and I'll do an NVQ in plumbing.
You have all these thoughts while you're on stage.
By the end of it, I've worked out, this is what I can do. I can be a plumber.
A whole new career path.
Right? I said, look, guys, you know what? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Tonight it didn't work, but I just want to say thank you very much for staring at me, and please have a safe flight home. And after the gig, if you want to have a beer with me and stare some more, please do. They didn't even clap me off. Then as I walked off, the next man came on and went, shook my hand and went, don't take it personally, bruv. I went, all right then. So I'm now in the green room and I'm Googling college course. I'm not making this up. I'm Googling college courses, and it's complete silence. I'm thinking, what's going on out there? And I poke my head out, and he's doing his best stuff, complete silence. Then he done his time. I came in, interval, there's a knock at the door. The tour manager came and said, don't worry, fellas, I've never seen you guys have a bad gig. Certainly not. I wouldn't expect both on the same night. Knock at the door, little guy goes, fellas, don't take it personally, but we all agreed before the gig that anybody laughed, they get filled in.
Right.
So
Great.
rather than sit and laugh at us, they had decided to sit there and just stare. So then, obviously, after the show ended, after the band, we both went on, and one of the
Yeah,
lads goes, said, "Come on, give it up for these two guys." They took it and they presented us both with Royal Anglian t-shirts.
cool.
I was like,
I
"Yeah,
think that's the thing, isn't it? They always, as long as you can handle it, they always kind of give you some respect afterwards, even if you haven't had the greatest gig. No.
yeah, yeah." Well, that's it, and then that's what we got to think about, though. How do you cope? Before we do, I've got to mention we've got a little hello here from Dawn Bailey.
Oh, hello, Dawn.
This anyone who's listening, if ever you see Dawn Bailey is listed, go and see her. She's
Yeah, she
hilarious.
is fantastic, Dawn.
Funny, but she's funny like your mate. It's not like them. It's like you could be around her house. I'm sure she's just as funny in her front room as she is on stage, which is a rarity.
Yeah.
But again, another example though, because I'm quite bubbly and upbeat. Your persona comes across very much on stage. How do you cope then if it doesn't go well? What do you do? Do you go and kick the cat, or is that just
I don't know really, because obviously, like when you've been doing this for a while, I've had some absolute stinkers of gigs, and I have had gigs where you've like similar to you, although I've never had the kind of like that moment on stage planning my whole new career, but I've had it on the drive home, thinking I really need to rethink my life choices here. But I try. I think now I just try to be quite analytical about it, and like if you have one gig where you've struggled, you just got to think, well, hang on a minute, let's not take this out of context. Let's have a look how many gigs I've had where it's gone really well, and let's weigh it up. I mean, if I was having like more than 50% of my gigs were going terribly, I think I'd probably would seriously reconsider. But when you have one in, I don't know, 20, 40, 50, however many it is, 100 maybe, that's terrible, you kind of think, well, on the weight of evidence, I am all right at this. Like, I can't just take this one example as because that's the thing with comedy, isn't it? There's so many factors that you can't even always take into account. Sometimes you don't know. You might walk into a room, you might turn up to it late, walk into a room, not know anything that's happened before, steal your stuff to this audience and think, oh, they're a bit quiet, and then like you don't even realise that something really weird had happened just before you went on stage, or I did a British Legion gig one time. I remember emceeing, and like one of the like most famous sort of, or the biggest characters that used to go there had died like a couple of days before, and so everyone was in a shit mood because they'd just lost Bert, who'd been there for 50 years or whatever. And so comedy was going to be a bit of a struggle that day, but we didn't know that turning up as comedians. So we might have gone like, "Oh shit, this audience don't really like what we're doing."
Well, here's the thing, and I'm sure that you will be happy to talk about this. So, as you know, I've been working on cruise ships since 2003. I do probably 6 to 10 a year. I've done so. I'm away next week. Just because I stormed my last one doesn't mean this one's going to go well. And I think I told you this, where I've done a gig on there, got an encore, and the next night they've stared at me. And you go, they're tougher than squaddy gigs.
Oh man, yeah, I've only done like a couple of cruises, and I take my hat off to you being able to do them, mate. They were tough gigs. Yeah,
it's just that whole thing of you're in front of an audience who haven't paid to see you. They've seen Bernard Manning, who was much funnier, and one of them got sunburnt in Rome, so they want compensation. And you're like, what?
Well, one of the ones I did, it was the night before me, because I was in a big. It was like an 800-seater theatre as well for a start on the cruise, because these are huge cruise ships and massive, aren't they? And there was only about 100 people in there for me, so it was like peas rattling around in a massive can. And the night before, they'd had I went and saw the show the night before, and it was hits from the West End musicals, and it was literally like a West End musical production. The dancers, the singers were absolutely amazing. The scenery was fantastic, all the music and everything. And they'd put on this massive West End style show, and then the next night it was just me stood on a stage. I was wearing.
I remember talking to you. I
looked
remember
quite
talking
smart,
to you before.
but it was literally like, it was like, how can I compete? It's like, how can I compete with like the West End? There's no. I'm like the opposite of showbiz razzmatazz.
When I was on last month, I was up against Gareth Gates.
Gareth
So
Gates.
they go see Gareth Gates, then they come see me. But I'll start by going, they want to see Gareth Gates. They go, yeah, wasn't he fantastic? They're like, oh, he likes him as well. So with something like that, then how do you cope when it's not gone well and it's tough and mate, I can't do this anymore?
I find that mostly you know, when you're gigging, you're driving to the gig. Anyway, drive to the gig and then drive home. I usually manage to process it on the drive home. If the drive home is about an hour and a half, 2 hours, you know, I'd spend that time while I'm driving and my brain goes a bit crazy and runs through it and thinks, oh, could I have done this better? Could I have done that? What's this? But usually by the time I get home, I've kind of sort of, you know, resolved it in my own head and think, right, okay, that's done and dusted. I can't do anything about it. Is there things I can learn from it? Can I do better tomorrow night or the next night I'm gigging? So I tend to be quite, I suppose, analytical about it nowadays. Luckily, I've never been one that kind of, you know, drowns my sorrows because I'm always driving. So I've never been a drinker whilst I've done comedy. I was quite a big drinker before I started doing comedy, but bizarrely, the fact that I spend almost every night while I'm doing comedy in a bar somewhere, but I don't actually drink anymore. So I've never done the whole kind of drink and drugs thing, but I totally understand people that I can understand why you might do that because, yeah, you want to drown your sorrows or kind of escape the reality that you've just had.
But would you ever think, if I don't do this, what else can I do?
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of that, and there's a certain amount once you've put enough time and effort into it, you think like, well, I've kind of got to make this work. I kind of like, I mean, I'm 48 now. Like, I've got my 49th birthday this year, and then I'm going to be 50 next year. So it's like, what am I going to do if I can't make this work? It's like I've left it a bit late to be a footballer now. Or my other job that I wanted to do, by the way, I never said before, was wanting to be a fighter pilot as well. So, but I think I'm a bit old for that as well. So,
Wow.
so yeah, you
it,
kind of like think you have to make it work, don't you? You like got to get past it.
And is that a tip that you would have in life? If you were to give someone a tip on how they could, you know, cope with the tough times, what would you think you'd give?
Oh, that's a really good question. Isn't it? It's like I don't
Snuck it up on
know
you.
if this has worked for everyone, but I always think like one of my things I think is like when you have a tough time, you know, like comedy is very up and down, isn't it? You know, like you'll have experienced that you can have a run of really good gigs and then you can have a run of really bad gigs. But I always try to remember that the bad times are transient. They are short. You will get through a bad time, and there'll be a ray of light at some point. So when you're in that deepest kind of pit, I always try and think like, well, this won't be permanent. This will change. I'll feel better at some point. So I've just got to, you know, somehow get through this. I don't know if that's the best advice,
No,
really.
that's you know what, that's sound advice, mate, because a lot of people think they can't see a light at the end of the tunnel. They can never see a way out of it. And
Yeah,
I mean, I try not to tell people what to do at the best of times, but there's
yeah. I
nothing
mean, I
worse, I
think it's
guess,
a
than
very individual experience, isn't it? It's very difficult to say to someone how
you want to go, well, look, this is what works for me, right?
Yeah,
Do something. 20 minutes of activity is better than 20 hours of
yeah. I'd say
procrastination.
like
You know?
going like I've got a dog, so going out for a walk with the dog always helps me if I'm feeling really shit and low. I take the dog out for a walk and just even if it's raining and he doesn't want to go, but like we go out for a walk and I always find that'll lift my mood. Just getting out and about, moving your body, isn't it? It's like I think
Movement, yeah.
without getting too hippy dippy, we're all connected, aren't we? It's a holistic thing, like
And
a
do you meet
healthy
other
body,
dog
a healthy
walkers?
mind. What's that?
Do you have other dog walker mates that you meet? All right, Mary. Mary's got a cocker spaniel.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Do you have a dog, John?
No,
Do you have a dog? No. The thing is with dog walking is, yes, that you're right. There are people I bump into, but I never find out what their name is. I know
you
the
know the
dog's
dog.
name.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, if I speak to Willow, my partner, and she'll say, "Oh, did you meet anyone?" And I'll say, "Well, I met Oscar's owner, or I don't know what they're." So I've no idea what
21st
the
century
people's
dog
names
owners.
are. Yeah,
So, my mate Ashley, when I talk to him, he'll talk to me when he takes the dog for a walk. All right, John, take the dog for a walk. Hello, Rebel. I'm like, Rebel? What is he like? Some big. I thought Rebel was like a biker. But no, Rebel is a British bulldog whose owner is the librarian.
Great name, Rebel.
Yeah. All right, Rebel. Like that. He goes, yeah. So anyway, John, I've been at work today, and hang on a second, hang on. All right, Mr. K. I'm like, Mr. K. Is that a person? He goes, no, that's a dog. Mr. K is Jack Russell.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I think that my kids always wanted dogs, and I'm like, no, you can't have a dog. My dog died when I was 13. And it took me years to get over it, mate. It was awful, honestly. Even now, I'm like, oh, mate, yeah, tough. My kid's dog, they died yesterday, I think. So I'm consumed with empathy for them. Because it's like they've lost a member of the family, but it's
Well,
like,
tough.
send a card. What do you do? Do you go, they don't live with me; they're grown ups now. So, but you go, like I say, my oldest boy, he's got dog walkers, man. They let themselves in his house and take the dog for a walk.
Well, I used to do that for a bit. When I lived in Swindon, I did that as well.
Was a dog walker.
Yeah,
like James Dad's will and his car that smells of dog.
Oh, my car's a real mess, mate. I don't know if you saw. I put on Facebook a couple of nights ago. I actually caught someone breaking into my car.
The Nicked Your Crisps,
and it was hilarious because, like you know what a comic's car generally looks like. It was just like, I mean, if anyone else had looked in my car, they wouldn't have known whether the mess was just the normal mess from me or the mess was someone getting through the car. Crisp packets all over the place. Drinks bottles.
Brilliant. Tony, if anyone wants to come and see you, where do you list your gigs?
Oh, that's best thing to do is follow me on Twitter, to be honest, because my website is, I don't think my website even exists at the moment. I don't think I paid for the renewal of the web address. And so my little handle there at Tony Cowards in the corner of the screen there. That's where I am on Twitter. It's best to look me up on there. I'm terrible though for telling people where I'm gigging. So if you do follow me on Twitter, remind me, and I'll try and put lists of gigs.
Oh, you're prolific on Twitter, don't you, mate? You do like to tweet.
Well, I used to be. I've kind of drifted off it a bit now, because when I first started on Twitter, it used to be a fun place to just put loads of jokes on, and it's become a bit more serious and doom scrolling now, especially with some of the things that are happening in the world. It's like it's a bit depressing.
Yeah. I uploaded a video today of a project I'm working on where I've interviewed a survivor of sexual abuse, and it's a really deep interview. Someone private messaged me going, "I thought you were meant to be a comedian." Well, no, I'm meant to make jokes to the bloke. Guy's struggling, mate. I know you mean the Twitter thing is pretty difficult. Dave Green has just said at 47 is about to start full-time education at university. No secondary education qualifications. Never too old to change careers. What a positive note to end on. So it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. The hour has flown.
Well, thanks, John. That's been great to chat with you. I'm sorry. I'll tell you what, before you go, let me just see if I can turn the Christmas lights on. You fill for a minute.
I'll see if I can. So Tony's advice there, absolutely sound, The bad times will pass. Maybe they won't pass, but you've got to have some sort of optimism. You've got to be something to kind of make you want to keep going. Shelley, last week, I think it was saying sometimes a small step turns into a big one. So do something. Pat Monaghan, keep focused. Great bit of advice. The lights are on. Look at
that. There we go. That's a metaphor. That's a metaphor for something, isn't it? The lights will eventually come on, mate.
If you lean forward and stay there, that almost looks like the crown of thorns starting. We could wrap that around your head. You could be sweet and gentle Jesus. Sweet and gentle one, not the scary one. Listen, mate, hopefully I'll bump into you real soon. You take care.
Yeah. Pleasure, John.
Absolute pleasure. You too, buddy. Cheers, pal. That was Tony Cowards, very entertaining man who you could spend hours in his company. Very relaxed, nice demeanour. You get the feeling that nothing will faze him. But as he pointed out, he's had tough gigs, he's had tough times. But what do? You just think, well, for him, these things will pass. And he doesn't think that everything is going to last forever. And I know that sometimes it's easy for me to go, well, look, if you just do this. But actually, doing something very often can be very, very positive and very, very helpful to people. I want to thank everyone for coming along again, because it's been a bit of a bumper week this week, really, hasn't it? Please do keep listening on Monday nights at 7 p.m. on mensradiostation.com, and again on Deluxe and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and SoundCloud and everywhere else. Mensradiostation.com has shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's always something on there that will entertain, or you could just put the telly on, listen to that nonsense that they're always sprouting on there. If you come to Men's Radio Station, you're going to hear meaningful conversations from real people. That can't be a bad thing, can it? Do give us likes and follows, because apparently these things are all important. Ultimately, look, we're all on our own. We're all on our own. I got to sleep tonight on my own. I woke up in the morning on my own. The fact that someone shares my life, my bed, my house, ultimately, I'm on my own. We all are. But this battle of life can be a bit easier if you've got people to share it with. And it doesn't have to be a mate or a partner. That can be anyone. If you are struggling, or you know anyone who's struggling, just say to them, what can I do to help you? Be part of the solution. Don't be part of the problem, because life can be tough and it can be very, very hard on people. If you do struggle and you need some proper help, though, or you know someone who needs proper help, I always mention these two organizations. One is Time to Change. Time to Change are a great organization that want to end mental health discrimination and stigma. And Mind, MIND, they're also very, very, very good. Do keep listening. WJ, thank you as always. If you're interested in anything that I'm getting up to, then please do have a little look at my website, happytohelpyou.com. We use humor to raise awareness of men's health, women's health, mental well-being, make them laugh, make them listen, talk, laugh, inspire. That's all we're trying to do. I'm not saying I've got the answer to everything. What I am saying, though, is that I've got some of the questions. And if I get guests on who can help us answer those questions, then hopefully between us, we can come up with ways and things that may work, that may be of use to people out there. Because there's been a lot of people on this show over the last year who've come up with some cracking ideas, things that you can do. People like Kev McCarthy, who said, just talk to people. Charmaine Hughes said, have strong boundaries. Ben said, there's always going to be setbacks. James Daswell, the big dog lover that he is, be persistent and keep going. There's always going to be something that's going to work for you. My own top tips, as always, reframe unhelpful thoughts, because negativity is really, really dangerous. Try and be in the present. Don't think about the past. Past is gone. Future's yet to come. Today's a present, and it's a gift. We're alive, and a lot of people aren't. Try not to have toxic people in your life where possible, because toxic people will suck the energy out of you like emotional hoovers. If you can, get yourself a meaningful hobby. Try and get something to do. I've got my home to myself for the evening. So after this, I'm getting young Sheldon on the telly, get myself a cup of tea and a biscuit, and I'm going to binge watch just irreverent, silly television. Because sometimes you need to do something that's just going to take your mind off what's going on out there in the world. If you have enjoyed tonight's show, like I say, do come along every Monday at 7 o'clock. And once again, just to mention mensradiostation.com, the daily show is normally good with Russ and Phil. There's always something very engaging and entertaining on there. If you do live near a comedy club, go and watch a bit of comedy. If you haven't been, it's a great night out. It's make you laugh. Laughter, very good. You're taking in oxygen when you laugh, which gives you nice, healthy red blood cells, makes your heart beat quicker, so it pumps those healthy blood cells all around your body. Dave Green saying thank you, but thank you, Dave, for listening and for coming along. Good luck with your education. 47 is not old to start a new career. If I tell you that one of my heroes is a woman called Lena Kennedy, and Lena Kennedy didn't publish her first book until she was 67 years of age. And she died a millionairess. So that's not to say that you're judging your success by money, but people wanted to read what she had to say. People will take an interest in you. Just make that effort. So once again, if you know someone who's struggling, reach out and say, what can I do to help you? If you need help, ask for help. If you can't, get on the website, have a look. There are people out there who can help you. And there are people here every Monday night at 7 o'clock. So take care, and we'll see you all next week.
3, 2, 1.
Well, that's the end of another episode of Reading the Signs with me, Comedy John Ryan. We're here every Monday night at 7 p.m. talking with comedians about mental wellness, mental well-being, and just trying to get the conversation going. What we're trying to do is show that it's good to talk, and we're also trying to show that everybody can go through the same experiences. A massive thank you to the WJ Group who sponsored the show, showing their commitment not just to mental well-being, but also to reaching as broad an audience as possible. It's great to be part of the mensradiostation.com family, so do check us out on the website, on social media. We'll be back next Monday. You take care. Stay safe, everybody.